Hi, my name is Mark. So welcome to the last episode of our Gear Week. I think the title of this series of videos is pretty self-explanatory, but for those who haven't really watched the other videos, I usually make lesson videos like either talking about soloing and improvising, guitar lesson stuff, or maybe composing and songwriting lessons, and even this series called Guitarist Week, which is basically like a news show sort of a thing. And even though in that series I do talk about new gear, like, oh, look at this new guitar that I like, or look at this guitar that's completely horrendous or something, but I don't really usually do many gear reviews or gear demos, not because I don't want to, but because I don't really have access to that much gear, and the gear I have access to usually isn't that relevant or interesting to talk about. But in the past few days I actually acquired some pieces of gear that I thought were pretty interesting and that I thought it would be cool to share with you guys. I decided, okay, for this week let's not do any of our regular lesson videos and let's just do a gear related week. Again, if you haven't watched the other ones, I highly suggest to do. I'll leave the playlist right there on the card section. And if you've seen the other ones, you're probably waiting for this one for a while because I've been teasing it a lot, so let's just get on to it. But before we get to it, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. As you're probably aware, YouTube acts a little bit weird. Even if you subscribe to a channel, those channel's videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you still really will not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my videos, not only do I suggest subscribing and turning on all the notifications, but also follow me on social media. Again, not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvise solos and jamming cover backing tracks, but also whatever I'm up to at the moment. Links for usual suspects will be below, but in channel at Rarities Guitar. And since you're down there, please consider leaving a like and share this video on social media. I'd highly appreciate it. And now I guess you can get back to the unboxing part of the video. Okay, and then like the other two videos, which as you were probably able to see by my clothing, which were actually recorded on the same day, I'm recording this one on another day because this guitar came a little bit later than the other ones. And just by the case itself, those of you who are kind of gear aficionados may already know what I'm talking about. So let's get the big reveal. So here's the bad boy. Okay, so for those who don't know, this is a guitar from the Fender Rarities series. If you're a fan of Trogley from the Trogley's Guitar Show, you've probably seen a couple of these guitars, and even some other YouTubers like Samurai Guitarists got one of this collection as well. But for those who aren't really connoisseurs of Fender guitars or stuff like that, basically this is a series of limited edition guitars that they're making for this year, or this year and next one or something like it. And they basically take a common design, like you can see in this one is sort of a Strat sort of a thing, but they add stuff like the F-hole right here, so it's a semi-hollow guitar right here, and they also did a rosewood neck, which I'm a pretty big fan of if you've seen some of my other videos, and it has the fancy S1 switch to split the coils, and it does that fancy new thing that Fender does, that when you split the coil you don't really lose as much volume because it has extra winds in that single coil part of the pickup. It's a pretty cool thing. And again, you have the American 2-screw bridge because some of the other guitars are more vintage inspired designs and they have the 6-screw ones, and as you can see we have the rosewood neck in here. I actually already did some modifications, which you'll be able to probably see already. I took the back plate off because, again, if you play strats, it can be sort of a pain in the ass to restring your guitar, and I got it changed from 3 springs to 4 springs, and I added a little foam underneath right here so that the strings don't really ring. Some people like to do it on the inside, and I kinda don't dislike it, but because I'm using the tremolo, I sometimes find that depending on the springs, adding the foam inside the springs can sometimes add a little bit of resistance to the tremolo system, and that makes the guitar get out of tune sometimes, so I decided, okay, let's just put it underneath and see how it works, and for now I think it works fine. And the other modification I did, again, this is just the Dario clip-on tuner, you can take this off. But the modification I did was I added locking tuners because since I intend to use the tremolo on this guitar, maybe not abuse it, because it's not really the type of tremolo to abuse like a Floyd Rose tremolo or something like it. But not only are the locking tuners great for tuning stability because you don't really need to do all of those winds, but it's also really quick for string changes. Again, I have a really powerful sweat that destroys strings and corrodes all of the other metal parts of my guitars, so doing fast string changes is really important to me. And before we get to hear this thing, just because I imagine some of you would actually want to see it, let's open this pouch right here. Let's see what's inside. Again, here's the tremolo arm, we'll use that later. And here's the back plate, which will stay on the case. This is your new home now, you ain't gonna leave. And we have this little Fender pouch thingy, and it has a couple of things like this free online lesson sort of a thing, which I'm definitely going to take, of course I am. And we have this user manual sort of a thing, and most importantly, we have the certificate of authenticity. We have a red sticker, which I'm going to put on another case, and we have Allen keys, which are always important. And that's pretty much it on this bad boy. Let's go check it out how it sounds. Okay, so I just gave you like a brief overview of the guitar. I won't really get too much into specs because we can all read that, but I think that if you're into this guitar and you're thinking about buying one, or you just want to know how it sounds or feels, I think that's probably what's most relevant, not exactly like, oh, how many millimeters are at the neck, or what's the ratio of the tuners or something like it. I think I'll just share with you what I think that's important about this guitar. First of all, it's the pop-in tremolo arm. I don't know about you guys, but those ones that you have to screw don't really resonate with me, and they always seem like they're a little bit clunky. And I'll be honest, even though this one isn't exactly flush, it's pretty good. This is the most movement it does without really moving the tremolo. And like I mentioned before, I decided to upgrade it to 4 springs instead of just 3 springs, because one thing I really like to do is, you know, those double stop bends, like when you have a tremolo, because you're bending the strings, you're pushing the tremolo as well. So even though you're bending one note, the other one many times goes flat. And I don't really like that about tremolo systems, but I know that's important to have a guitar that, well, even though I have the Jackson one that does that sort of a thing, in a much better way because it's a Floyd Rose tremolo and you can abuse it like hell. But in this one, by having the 4 tremolo strings, it sort of feels like a Bigsby sort of thing where you can do those chords. But before I get to details like that and the sound, I just want to briefly explain why I got this guitar. Back in January, when all of those videos of the NAMM show were coming around, I saw this video on the Andertons channel where they were just hanging around the Fender booth, and I saw a guitar like this one hanging there, and I just started to salivate like hell, and I was like, oh my god, it looks so cool. But then I was like, oh, it's probably a custom shop and it's really expensive. And then I found out it wasn't a custom shop, and I got my hopes on, but it was still pretty expensive. Not only because of the rosewood neck, which I'm a big fan of. I have 2 guitars there that have rosewood necks. And you can check out some of my other videos. I've done videos about those as well. Even though I prefer the Gibson scale length, I'm much more of a Fender guy than a Gibson guy. So I guess when I try out guitars, I'm more comfortable around those Fender style instruments, like the Schecters and Suhrs and Tom Andersons and stuff like that. And because over time I've been growing my guitar collection, even though there are some guitars that I think, oh, that's pretty cool, I usually try to only buy guitars that feel a purpose. Like for instance, I think the last guitar I got before this Gear Week was my Les Paul back there. And if you haven't watched my unboxing of that guitar from a couple of months ago, or like a year ago, something like it, I'm not really sure already. When I unboxed that guitar, I told you guys that I got that guitar because I'm a Tele guy. But because when you do sessions and gigs, it's important to have different styles of guitars. Even though I have other humbucker guitars like my Jackson, I'm really missing some of those more vintage tones, but still humbucker loaded tones, not single coil tones like my Strat or my Tele. And which humbucker loaded guitar is more classic than the Les Paul? I don't know, maybe perhaps the SG or the S335, which I'm still looking for one that I like, but that's the purpose for another video. Because I have like an Ibanez whole body jazz thing, I sort of got the ES335 cover thing, and even though I still want an SG, I just want a specific SG, not just any SG. I thought, okay, the Les Paul is probably a good choice, and I found that at a reasonable price, and it had many of the specs I was looking for, so I decided, okay, I have a couple of money, so let's get that guitar. I got it second hand. Again, this video is not about that guitar, but basically I got that guitar because I had a purpose. But when it comes to this guitar, it's kind of weird, really, because at the same time, it fills a purpose, and it doesn't. Let's get to why does it fill a purpose. Well, it fills a purpose because even though I have a Strat, and I have my Jackson Kelly, which is a modern guitar, I don't really have a modern Strat guitar sort of a thing. I don't really have like an Ibanez or a Schecter or a Suhr or something like it. And like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, when I went for a vacation in New York, I went to a ton of guitar stores and I tried a bunch of guitars and a bunch of super Strat guitars. And I was like, well, this is something that I could get used to. And again, it's important to have like a super Strat style of guitar in your arsenal. And even though this isn't exactly like a super Strat style of guitar, in a way it's sort of traditional. It doesn't really have like a super modern tremolo. It's a regular Fender 2-point tremolo, and the pickups aren't really that modern. Again, having a humbucker in a Strat is pretty iconic, but then it has single coils, so it's not really that much of a modern Strat thing. But in a way, it does fill that purpose, and by being a super Strat sort of guitar, even though this is a pretty expensive guitar and I don't want it to get damaged, when I go to gigs, my Tele is the #1 guitar. It's the one I can rely on the most, it's the one that doesn't really get out of tune, it's the one I can get the most tones out of, and it doesn't feel awkward. And I thought, okay, if I get like a super Strat guitar, that can maybe become my #1 or my #2, because for the #2 guitar, I usually take the Les Paul or the Strat, and I don't feel like the Les Paul is a super level guitar for touring, at least for me. And for me, a regular Strat is cool for some things, but not all the things. So I thought, okay, getting a guitar like this has a purpose tonally and a purpose practically. But then, as I mentioned before, it's sort of doesn't feel that purpose as well. Then comes the emotional part of me buying this guitar, which again, it's about the rosewood neck. Again, if you haven't tried the rosewood neck, at first it feels a little bit weird, but then after you played it for a while and the oils of your hand get into the neck of the guitar, at least to me it feels better than any other neck would. And like I mentioned before, when I was in New York, I tried a bunch of guitars, and one of those guitars was the Rarities Thinline Stratocaster, which again is like this one has the F hole right here, and the semi-hole here, and it's solid here, which was something that I really liked on that guitar. Again, it has a little bit of extra breathiness and woodiness to the sound. It's a little bit weird to describe, but you can definitely feel it when you play it. And again, not only the neck wood, but also the body wood. Again, I'm not really sure, I think this is an older body, maybe a mahogany body, but I think it's an older body. And it has the arm contour thing. And look at this top, it's really good. Again, like I mentioned before, even though it sort of fills a purpose, not as much as the other ones. When I looked at this guitar, I was like, oh, but it looks so good, and it has all the specs I was looking for. And it looks so cool, and then it has a rosewood neck, and it's so cool. And when I went to my custom shop dealer, even though this isn't exactly like a custom shop thing, I think this is made in the regular factory, just with custom shop-ish specs. I asked the guy, okay, can you get me a deal on this? It's like 2,600 euros new, and was like, maybe, I don't know, let's see if we can work something out. And in the end he did. You can check out Mr. Jack Guitars. So I put down a deposit for it, and this guitar was supposed to arrive here on December. It actually got here right in the end of November, like 28th or something like it, or 29th. And like I mentioned before, this isn't like the exact dream guitar for me. It lacked a few important things for me that I had to upgrade. Again, these are Fender locking tuners, and because it's a tremolo guitar and it has a springs, like I mentioned before, I had to put a little bit of foam underneath the springs. And even though it's a lot more quiet now, when I play it acoustically, I don't really know how much the mic will pick up, but you can definitely hear the jingle bells sort of a thing. So I already ordered like a Groove Gear fret wrap thingy. It hasn't really gotten here yet, because for some reason Groove Gear has a lot of different colors for the fret wraps, but if you live in Europe you can only get a couple of those colors on Amazon and stuff like that. Like I wanted the orange one for this guitar, and I can only get the orange one through the USA, which is always pretty nice to know. So it's going to take a little bit more than a week to get here, but hey, whatever. And it doesn't come with strap locks, which again, I can understand, because different people like different style of strap locks, and if Fender just got the shallower ones or something like it. For instance, in my case, I use the Dunlop ones, so having a guitar loader with shallower strap locks, it's a little bit weird because I have two different systems, so I'm going to upgrade these buttons for Dunlop strap locks. Again, for touring and gigging, it's just that more reliable. And the other thing I noticed straight away, which maybe it's because this guitar is new and the other Fender guitars I got were always second hand, which is the frets on this guitar are taller and skinnier than the other Fender guitars I have. And even though it's a little bit weird to transition between both of them, they definitely feel nice. And even when I use the tremolo, again, even though this is not like a super dive bomby tremolo, it works alright if you don't abuse it too much. If you just use it to do those like vibrato chords, it works alright and it's still in tune. And even if you want to do like those, it's still more or less in tune. But again, I could probably get a little bit of graphite or a little bit of nut sauce in here. But overall, even though I think the guitar is a little bit expensive for the guitar it is, if you were to buy it with no discount for the like, I don't know, 2,500 bucks or something that it costs, it's not like I would say it's not money well spent, because you're buying not only the guitar, but you're buying for the exclusivity, because it's a limited edition guitar. It is pretty fancy, I'll need to admit it. And even though that brown case I showed you before isn't really a great case, and I'm saying it's not a great case because it's a case for light traveling and not a case for touring, I would much prefer if it came with the regular hard shell case that the American professionals are arriving with. But wherever, I mean, since it's a premium instrument, I guess it makes sense. PRS guitars also come with those fancy cases and not really the touring cases, so sure. But yeah, I've been probably rambling till now, so let me just show you some sounds. Again, like in the other videos, I'm going through my Kemper into Studio One, and I'm not really doing any post-processing or EQing or stuff like that. But like I mentioned before, I'm using a Kemper, and I'm going to go through like a clean sound, a crunchy sound, and then like a lead sound, and the clean sound is like this Vox-ish thing, and then the crunch sound is like a Plexi-ish thing, and then the lead sound is like a Friedman BE sort of a thing. They're all going through like a Mesa 412 IR sort of a thing that came with some profiling in the Kemper using like an SM57, I think, something like it. Again, definitely not something too fancy and boutique. And I'll do the general playing in the crunchy sound, and then a little bit maybe on the lead sound, and then I'll give you a brief overview of all the tones in all the different sounds. Okay, so here's how the bridge pickup and full humbucker mode sounds with the crunch sound. Again, sorry for the rubbish playing, I haven't really gotten my hands properly warmed up yet. But I don't know about you guys, but this definitely feels like a great sound. Again, had to lower the pickups a little bit because even though the design of a Strat is pretty good for some things, like the pickup switch is right here so that you can easily access it while you're playing, and the volume knob is right here so that you can access it while you're playing. Well, even though that's good because you can access them while you're playing, it's also bad because you can access them while you're playing when you don't want to access them. Like if you're playing something on a neck pickup, then you hit the switch and there it is down there when you want it to be on the neck pickup. And the same thing with the volume knob, like you're playing something, then you hit the volume knob and it's not where you wanted it to be. And having that middle pickup here is really good for getting those in-between sounds. Having the middle pickup right here on the middle. This part in the middle is where many of us play, so it can be sort of odd to pick if you don't have it a little bit lower down. And the same thing with hybrid picking. And you have to be a little bit careful because you're hitting the screw of that pickup and you're hitting the pickup cover and stuff like that, which many times is not really that comfortable, but hey, not every guitar is perfect, I guess. Well, maybe the Telecaster. Again, because my first guitar was the square Strat sort of a thing, I actually got used to having the volume knob right here, so I don't really hit it that much anymore. And the same thing with the pickup switch, but I've definitely lowered these pickups down, not only for just convenience of playing, but also because, like I mentioned in some other videos, I don't really like to have super hot guitars, and because the humbucker is a little bit harder than the single coils. When I go to my neck pickup, I guess I'll give you a brief overview of the neck pickup. If I hit it really hard, you sort of get this distortion effect. But if I hit it lightly, I can get it to clean up a little bit. When I go to the bridge pickup in humbucker mode, I can do the same thing. Again, if I play it really hard, but if I play it really lightly, again, even though it's not as clean as the single coil, but because it's a bridge pickup, maybe I don't want that all the times. Distorts in a nice way, and if I coil split it, again, here's the regular humbucker sound. Here's that coil split. And it's a well done coil split because even though it becomes a single coil, sometimes these split humbuckers can sound a little bit too shrill, and it's not really the case in this one, even if I go super high, like... It has the right amount of high end, which I like. And again, if I try to give you some of the other sounds, like the second position, I wasn't really expecting this, but I think it sounds better, like more wacky, if you use the middle pickup and the humbucker instead of the middle pickup and the humbucker in single coil mode. Like here's the regular second position. And here's it with the humbucker in single coil mode. So that's the second position. And I don't know about you guys, but even though the middle pickup sometimes is not really used enough, I really like it, but because many times I have to have the middle pickup super low, it doesn't really sound as good. But this one sounds especially juicy. Has a little bit of a different tone for soloing, which again I like. And even for chords, again you can use it for the more funkier playing. Here's the fourth position, again that's the one for the... And for soloing, again it's that C-Brave 1 sort of a thing. it has the fancier woods, and it has the semi-hollow part of it, and it has the humbucker, is it super different than a regular Strat? Well, maybe not. It really depends on the guitar and what rig you're sort of using, but I'm really happy with the way it sounds, the way it feels, and again, even though I have some little things that I changed, like that in the locking tuners, and I wouldn't mind it at all if it had some fancier pickups, like I don't know, if I had some gold foils or some Filtertrons or something like it. Maybe that's something I can do later on, but I'm not sure. I'm sort of happy with how this guitar sounds. Even though I've only had it for a couple of days, it definitely feels like one of my best guitars. Let me just show you some of the lead sounds. Again, if I sort of turn down the volume a little bit and I play some sort of classic rock sounds, it definitely works. But even though it's a semi-hollow guitar, if I bring all of the volume in and I play some metal, is it a metal machine? Well, maybe not, but it definitely doesn't work that bad for it. One thing that I like about these single coil neck pickups that sometimes doesn't happen with neck pickups that are humbuckers is that not only can you do the rich and full sounding soloing, but you can also do rhythm and it doesn't sound too full and too bassy. Like if I wanted to do something like, again, this isn't really super high gain, but if I wanted to do something like again, definitely a very, very, very usable tone. Let me just play you the exact same riff, but in a clean, a crunch, and a lead sound, and going through all the pickup positions. Okay, so there it is, like a brief overview of this guitar. Again, this isn't like a super in-depth review, but anyways, again, I don't really know what you guys think about this guitar, but if you have any thoughts about it, please leave them in the comment section below. Again, because this guitar definitely wasn't affordable, and I got some other pieces of gear recently that may have restricted my ability to buy new gear for like the next 3 years or something. But anyways, I'd really like to know what you guys think. And oh, I just remembered. Maybe I think I'll upgrade is remove this tremolo bar and get one that is completely chrome, because I don't really like this white dangly thing here, but I still have to think about it. But yeah, you guys tell me what you think on the comment section below. Again, I'll update you if anything happens anyways. But yeah, for now, I'm really into this guitar. I definitely got some very interesting sound that I don't think I could get in any other guitar that I currently have. Now, let's be honest, it's a very classy guitar. At the same way it looks contemporary, it definitely looks a little bit old and something that could maybe come out on the 50s. And of course, you guys know what I think about this block neck joint right here, but anyways, we'll not talk about it for now. Again, check out all of the other episodes of Gear Week if you haven't already, and like I mentioned in the other videos, and I'll mention it now, this week we had Gear Week, and next week we're going to get back to our regular style of content, so stay tuned for that if you're into that, and if you're into this sort of gear thing, also subscribe and tell me what you'd like to see, and I'll see what I can work out. But yeah, for now, let me just thank you so very much for watching. If you liked this video, again, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and turn on all the notifications. Check out some of my other videos after this one, again, I'd highly appreciate it. But yeah, because I've been probably rambling until now, let's just end it with this. Cheers!